Okay, welcome. For today's lesson, we will be looking at demand factors and hopefully we will be able to move a little bit onwards and look at destination factors as well. So, we have looked at developments in technology in the earlier lesson, right? The use of better, safer, and more comfortable transportation, use of technology in terms of how we harness smaller aircrafts that are more fuel efficient for short haul flights by budget carriers, how budget carriers also use platforms that are online to cut costs of operation and as a result offer better rates for their travelers who book with them. Okay, I believe we also mentioned a little bit about how the budget airlines cut costs, and in your search for the trip using a live platform, be it full cost carriers like Singapore Air, or through one of those combination sites, or directly with the budget carrier, you will realize that the range of facilities that are offered by full cost carriers and budget carriers vary. Okay, but all these things are facilitated by developments in technology. So that's very important. Now, the next set of factors that we're looking at is, of course, demand factors. Now, if you look at this graph here, which is something that you can extract from Singapore statistics, it actually shows the average household income has been on a rise. Okay, and this is only until 2012. If you were to find the more updated ones, it has actually gone up to about $6,000 average household income. So, one of the key things that we talk about in terms of demand factor is what can increase this need for tourism. What can force people, or I wouldn't say force people, what can trigger this desire in people to travel, to see the world, to learn, to experience new experiences, right? So the first and most important demand factor is disposable income. Now, when you're looking at disposable income, bear in mind this is actually the net income that you get every month after taxes have been paid. So when you are looking at your pay slip in the future, right, you will see several components in it. There will be a income called gross income, and then there will be a net income, which is what is credited into your bank account every month. Okay, so the difference, right, is taxes, and what is left behind is your disposable income. Is this the actual income, the physical amount of money that you can actually spend? So, for example, if you earn about $9,000 in Singapore after your income tax and not income tax, after your CPF contribution and other basic taxes, right, you will bring home about $8,000 or slightly less than $8,000. So you do have a healthy amount of tax that's taken away from you. Now, very importantly, is this idea of increasing affluence. If we go back to our original chart that we were looking at in terms of average household income, it's on the rise. So people are actually getting more money on average, okay, per household. And with this increase in affluence, a lot of people are now stepped into the middle class, right? Instead of having people trapped within the lower classes or at the poverty line, now you have a group of people who have extra cash on their hands. So why is it that global international travel is on such a big rise? It just got to do with two very big countries, India and China. Both of them have been stepping up their development very rapidly in the past 10 years, 10 to 15 years actually. And as a result of this, they have got this pool of middle income people who suddenly see that they have disposable income, large amounts of disposable income, with nothing better to do. So there's only that much rubbish you can buy, right? There's a limit to what kind of junk you can buy. So as you do grow in affluence, as your disposable income increases, the need for self-fulfillment, the need for adventure overtakes. Okay, when you're no longer hungry and not worried about your next paycheck, your need to fulfill a higher need in Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, right? Self-actualization, self-fulfillment, need for experiences increases. Therefore, disposable income is one of the key demand factors that trigger this push for international tourism. Second one is, of course, this a little sexist photo here, right, which actually shows you a bunch of a lady, right, living the life, the ultimate life of leisure, right? So the middle to high income group, leisure times come in the form of paid leave. As long as you're employed, right, you have a thing that you can take called paid leave. Of course, unless you're a teacher, like you're a teacher, you have no leave, right? But besides that, as long as you're working for somebody, there should be some form of paid leave. Paid leave works like this. You stay home or do whatever you want, right, when you're on leave. You're still paid, even though you're not at work. Therefore, it's called paid leave. Of course, there are other types of leaves, like no pay leave, where a deduction, a prorated deduction of however many days you are away, is done on your salary. But we're looking at leisure time here, so we're looking at paid leave here. So actually, even if you are taking leave to go on your vacation, your parents may still be paid. Okay. Second thing that increases leisure time would be things like shorter working hours. Right, I know it's very hard for you to fathom this, but because most of our parents actually work on a 5 day work week, okay? Because a lot of our parents here are middle class, and you do white collar jobs, not blue collar jobs. Although right, there are blue collar workers who earn as much as some white collar workers, right? But when you're looking at how is it that people have more leisure time, we are looking at people who now, instead of working 5.5 days, half a day on Saturday, now work only 5 days. And what does this unleash actually? If you think about this, if I only work Monday to Friday, right, and Saturdays and Sundays, I'm very sure nobody's gonna touch me. Technically, Friday, once I knock off work, be it 6 p.m., 7 p.m., or even 8 p.m., I can fly away. The time is mine. I can go to Batam. I can go to Kuala Lumpur even. Okay, I can take a short flight to Bangkok, a short flight to Hong Kong. I fly back on Sunday night and I go back to work. Okay, how much paid leave do people have? Right, you're looking at if you're just joining the workforce, you would be looking at about 12 to 14 days as a beginning, all the way up to about 21 days if you've worked more than 5 years in the company. Okay, so annual leave is something that is quite substantial. Now, you think about 21 days, what does that actually translate to? That's 4 blocks of 5 days. No? If you work a 5 day work week, that means technically you can don't go to work for a month. You're still paid. You can go for a month-long European holiday. So sounds great, right? Now, if you have no money, can you go for your tour? Think about it. If you have money, but you don't have time and you don't have paid leave, can you go for a tour? If you are your own business owner and you're unable to pry yourself away from the operations of your business, right, and you cannot be on tour and working at the same time, you will never be able to have leisure time. You will never go on tour. Similarly, for income, if you are waiting for the next paycheck to fill your stomach, to meet your human needs, the basic human needs of shelter and food, these are not met yet, you won't go for tour. So these two are the most important demand factors that predicate the push for tourism, the increase in tourism. So if you look at the increase in leisure hours in terms of America, 2006 seems to be the benchmark where they started going on this push to work less, okay, or to work less in terms of intensity, and the number of leisure hours has taken a very, very big spike upwards. Okay, the final demand factor is something that will gradually become more and more significant. Okay, this has got to do with changing lifestyles. Largely, we're looking at retirement. Okay, retirement. So, although if you look at this group, right, it seems to suggest that only the Caucasians retire, right? So, if you think about your own experience with the retirees in your family, do they travel more? Is it because they are not Caucasian, so they don't travel more? Right? Actually, I don't think so lah. Right? So with retirement unlocks the something that's very similar to our second demand factor, which is leisure time. With retirement, it sometimes unlocks disposable income as well. You may not be earning money, but you may be getting a pension. So with less responsibilities because your children are grown up, you don't pay for their stuff anymore. Uh, let's not go to the point where you assume your children are going to pay for your stuff. Okay, just pay for your own stuff, right? But with that, you both this group of retirees have both got a lot of leisure time and disposable income, so they form a very large pool of new travelers in this current global state. So in total, you will have three demand factors. If you are to make a comparison, which one would be the strongest one? Actually, is a tie between leisure time as well as disposable income. If you don't have either, you will not be able to change your lifestyle. Okay, so very important. So we've looked at developments in technology in terms of better flights, safer flights, in terms of online booking, cheaper costs. And we look at the three demand factors. So take a minute, digest this as we move on to the destination factors. Now, destination factors are what people choose to do. Okay, who are these people we're talking about? I want to bring you back to Gateway 1, where we look at stakeholders, the final part where we look at stakeholders who have a role to play in promoting tourism. These are the implemented strategies by those stakeholders. So, if you're looking at attractions, right, who can maintain your mountain resorts? Who can open the resort? Who can open the mountainous areas up for exploration? Who can protect your historical sites, your places of great culture and heritage? Who can give you protection or develop new tourist attractions like this? This actually is in Singapore. If you take a close look at this, this is Sea Hangs in Singapore. So it is actually a old Marriott Hotel, right? Marriott Hotel is above Sea Hangs. So it's an integrated retail space where you have a hotel to attract tourists and retail space to keep them occupied. So governments, tourist authorities, and tourism businesses together, right, your stakeholders, they are able to provide a range of attractions for you. So with this range of attractions, what does it do? It allows you to build tourist numbers. It allows you to attract more tourists because your attractions are now more tempting, more interesting, and it can be both natural, it can be built, it can be attracting domestic tourists, it can be international tourism. But when you're looking at having better attractions, okay, better design ones, better maintained ones, right, you will be then building the capacity to increase tourism to your country. So who does this? Basically your government, your tourist authorities, and some businesses. Second destination factor. Second destination factor, of course, we're looking at investment in infrastructure and services. Now, who can do this? If you're looking at infrastructure, only the government in most countries are able to come up with this large amounts of money to pump in to create transport infrastructure for both entering the country as well as within the country itself. So the example that should be freshest in your head is actually Jewel, which was very recently built right before COVID opened. Right, the cost is a staggering $1.47 billion, but I'm very sure it has recouped the $1.47 billion worth of investment by the government already. So tourist attractions, when you're building this in your infrastructures, this requires a lot of money. So generally, who is the stakeholder that is involved in this? The very, very large companies who are then roped in by the government itself. Okay, so this is very important. Some countries also think of it this way: infrastructure need not always be something that you build. It could be services, training for people who then have this ability to work in this tourism industry. Your tour guides, having regulations on who can be a tour guide, what certifications a tour guide would need to have. These are all very important. Finally, access to information. Now, this thing here, I have something that I need to reinforce. When we're looking at access to information, right, it's creating that attractiveness, okay, that attractiveness for you, the traveler, to want to come and visit this place, right? So when your when your media outreach as a stakeholder is able to push out information to entice people, to show tourists, potential tourists, how attractive, how interesting, how wonderful your country actually is. This is a big deal, right? But what are we looking at? We are looking in order to pump this kind of access to information. We're looking at the media. Okay, it can be government controlled media, it can be private entities, it can be YouTube, it can be TikTok, it can be yeah, it can be through traditional media outlets as well, but we're looking at media, okay, at this kind of traditional and non-traditional media outlets, and their role is very simple. Their role is promotion. So at this moment in time, I want to show you two videos, okay, two very short, simple videos. The first one, I will only show you a bit of it. It's got to do with our favorite town in Singapore, Yishun, right? So Yishun is widely known as a dangerous town. So imagine you're a tourist, right? And you want to come to Singapore, but you are worried that Singapore is not a safe place. So what will you do? Right? You keep hearing about, oh, there's this place in Yishun, in Singapore called Yishun, and it's apparently really dangerous. So you go and YouTube it, And look at what is the first video that pops up. It's one by Gib Ojisan, right? And he goes back to Singapore's most dangerous neighborhood.
Oh man, I missed her! めっちゃ可愛い、やっぱり相変わらず。
So, he is a Japanese living in Singapore, a YouTuber, and he has got 2 videos about Yishun. Okay, like many travelers or visitors to Singapore, right? What you hear about Yishun seems to be all bad news. So take a look. I'm gonna break it into bits and parts, and I will interject as I want you to think about certain ideas that he's bringing you for. He's now at Yishun MRT, and he's gonna bring you to Yishun, the most dangerous town in Singapore.
Back to Singapore's most dangerous hood. ここが好きってのはあるんですが、それ以前にやっぱりパトロール必要だと思うんですよね。And that's because last time after when I filmed a video in Yishun, there was a resident who hung a myna bird outside their flat. She wanted to give a poor bird a lesson for sneaking into her kitchen. And I also see so many fried food that's very dangerous to your body and your house. この動画を見るとキラキラしたイメージのシンガポールの別の側面が見えるほか、あと犯罪の現場に実際遭遇できるかもしれません。
So he actually portrays Yishun in the beginning at this point here as he's trying to verify that it's a dangerous place. So he wants to go on patrol, he wants to see whether he can even witness a crime.
じゃあパトロールに行きましょう。線香確か3つだっけな。でもなんか もったいないので1個にします。で、火をこれでいいのかなSorry if I'm doing it wrong. よし、今回の撮影の無事を祈れたんで、早速パトロール開始しましょう。This is the station. どことなくちょっと不穏な空気が流れてるような気もしなくもないですね。It's nice they have an NTUC right in front of the ticket machine. で、ちょっとやっぱり不穏な空気が流れてますが、まあ監視カメラ200個ぐらいあるんで大丈夫でしょう。
So as we all know, Yishun is not exactly a dangerous town, right? It's not any bit more dangerous than any town in Singapore. But with this video, as you watch the rest of it, if you go ahead and watch the rest of it on your own, you will realize that he actually portrays a very different view of Yishun. As a first-hand visitor to Yishun, you would see that Yishun is actually quite a pleasant place. And now, this kind of media outreach, what does it bring to then the new reader, the new recipient of this information, people who have never been to Yishun before, right? People who are considering Singapore, what would they form in the impression that will be in their mind, right? That Singapore is actually going to be really safe. If the most dangerous town in Singapore is so safe, the rest of Singapore must be even safer. Okay, so I'll come back to this again. Access of information, what we are looking for is to create a positive image, a positive impact, so that you can continue to promote using media your tourist destination and therefore increase the confidence in people in coming to your area here. Now, there are also specifically trained tourist industry personnel that will meet the needs of these tourists. And when we're looking at tourism industry, tourist industry personnel, I want to highlight that these are not only your tour guides. There are also other people who serve specifically tourists. So with that, let's go on to the second video. So I will be showing you a very short advertisement for a group of people called the Thailand Tourist Police. Okay. pause here. What has happened to the Caucasian mother? What has happened to the daughter? She's obviously gone missing, right? So she's looking for the daughter. There's no help around. She finds the Thailand tourist police, and immediately they spring into action. So we're gonna see it's not just losing the daughter that's giving her so much distress. There's something else that's adding on to her distress. So you see the worry that she has now? Why is she so incredibly worried about her daughter? Because the daughter is not only very young, not only that she's female and that she's gone missing, but her daughter is actually deaf. So in this situation, what can the Thai police do, right? Abduct her, be the kidnapper, grab her, go to the police station? No. We can do something great. So having watched this now, do you feel a lot safer? Right? If you're a Caucasian mother with a deaf young child, will you feel safe enough to go to Thailand and have a tour in Thailand and let your child walk around free? Because obviously the Thai tourist police can serve you and ensure that your child comes back safe and sound. Right. So this is one of these things that we can talk about in terms of having trained industry personnel, okay, who meets the needs of or the potential unfortunate needs of some of these tourists, okay, these clueless tourists who come to your country. So in terms of destination factors, access to information like this through the media would increase the confidence of people who are considering a trip there, who may be thinking of going to Thailand, and it may, as a result, be the thing that tips the scale that allows that them encourages them to visit Thailand immediately. Okay, so these are your destination factors. Now, if we look in totality at the factors that we have covered so far in terms of developments in technology, demand factors, destination factors, I think we should all be able to recognize that it is important to have all of these work together. If you're going to look at reasons for growth in global tourism, missing out on either one of these three or some of the components of these would not have got us to where we are now. So it is actually the miraculous combination of all these factors together that allow us to be where we are in terms of tourism at this moment in time. Having said that, there's a caveat. If you're looking at data that they present to you at all levels with data ranging from the past 10 years, there is going to be aberrant data. There will be aberrant data from 2019 to 2022. Global travel came to a screeching halt, right? It literally came to a screeching halt. So that's very important. You need to remember we are coming out from a pandemic situation, and as a result, a lot of the data out there will not corroborate with some of these things that we have learned, some of these things that we believe is continuing around the world. There will be data that is jumping in the opposite direction because of a different factor that had happened. So with that in mind, we will come to the end of this section here on reasons for growth in global tourism. So take some time, review these components here, and I'll see you in the next lesson.